Showgirls, 1995. I haven't seen this movie in probably close to 23 years or so. Now, away from the hype of it being, or the anti-hype that it generated when it was released, when it was considered to be one of the worst movies ever made and everyone laughed at it, away from that and you just watch it on its own merits, and I find Paul Verhoeven to be a very interesting director. He is possibly one of the very best directors who ever made mainstream big blockbuster action movies, and his recent movie Elle is really very good as well. I watched it as part of his career, so I took it seriously. This is a strong, powerful filmmaker. Okay, he had a massive commercial wobble and critical disaster with this movie, but perhaps it's not as bad as people say it is, and there's more to it than just laugh out loud bad dialogue and silly situations and a irritating lead character. So I took it with a certain amount of seriousness, and the movie it's a bit hard to get into the movie because the lead character is unappealing. She is very annoying, she is childish, she has these massive, gigantic, epic tantrums all the time and throwing food around, and the character just acts like a total idiot. And the thing is it Elizabeth Berkley's fault as an actress? Is it the script for making her do these silly things? Or is it the director for hyping it up and making it big and over the top? It's probably all three. The movie makes you cringe a few times because it's so silly and the lead character's so unappealing, and the story is, what there is of a story is not exactly deep or insightful. As an expose of strippers or something, it has no great significance. It's, as far as a story goes, it is an unremarkable story that really did not need to be told. There is minimal story, and the funny thing is, you can imagine, I don't know what Joe Esterhazy's expectations were, what he was exactly trying to create in his head for the movie, tone-wise, but it is possible to imagine someone reading the script and picturing a low-budget, scuzzy, gritty indie movie, you know, handheld cameras, grainy cinematography, and good acting, and it being made for $200,000 on 16mm. The story has that potential to be kind of gritty, but obviously they went for the spend $50 million, have it glitzy and have lots of steadicam shots and make it look fantastic and not so scuzzy. And there appears to have been a decision made for the tone, and I would blame Paul Verhoeven more than anyone else, to hype it up a bit and have the actors be big, and just to make it overblown, to take a small, possibly gritty story and to turn it into this overblown, silly, over the top extravaganza with really hyped up moments, when a moment would be, if we played the moment at this size, it would be believable and realistic and perfectly decent to watch, but they film it at this size with big emotions and moving cameras and all that stuff, and it just becomes a bit silly. The very opening, the first couple of minutes, the lead character has a massive tantrum in a food court, throws her food around and then runs out onto the street, and when she runs out onto the street a car almost hits her, and the woman who just recently met up with her grabs her and pulls her off the road. It's, as a piece of script writing, it's very silly, but the way it's filmed with fast editing and exciting camera work. It takes this moment that should really be this size and makes it this size, and it's so overhyped and silly that I was like, no, this is garbage. I can't sit through this. I'm cringing. It's so bad. I'm laughing out loud. So I stopped it, and I returned to it the next day because I thought, you know what, I want to give it a proper shot. And I think for long stretches the movie does actually work, and it's not silly. It's not too ridiculous. It's acceptable. It's a weak, middling, indifferent movie with a minor plot and whatever deficiencies it has, but it's not one of the worst movies ever made. That's ridiculous. It's not that bad. It's just got a few silly moments, but those silly moments are quite, really? They thought that was a good idea. Some of the dance routines, for example, are just so over the top. It's like, yeah, that's ridiculous. There's the occasional bit of dialogue that just makes you go, really? There's a really pointless scene where Robert Davey, or Davey, who played the owner of the strip club the lead character was dancing at originally, he turns up at her new job at the casino. And this scene is pointless. It could be cut and it would make zero difference to anything. But he meets up with her in the casino, and he has the weirdest, most random line of dialogue. He says, "It must be weird not having people on you when you dance." It's not that the line itself is terrible. It's just in context it's unnecessary. It is over the top and unnecessary in that moment. And as I said, they could cut the scene and it would make no difference to the story. And there's other just odd bits. Some of the sex scenes are just a little silly looking, and Kyle MacLachlan's been given this ridiculous haircut with the fringe in his eye. Some of Gina Gershon's character's just given... She's just a strange... Gina Gershon's character's just a bit silly. Everything about her's just not quite... Her dialogue and her purpose in the story, it's all a bit... Her rivalry with the lead character's just a little odd. Doesn't quite sit right. Just a wee bit weirdly written. And she's given quite a few odd lines of dialogue. I mean, the movie's just got a lot of odd moments. The lead character beats up a rock star. She goes to his hotel room and beats him up, and it's all a bit unconvincing. So the movie is weak. It's the censorship issue. It was an NC-17, which was a big deal at the time because it was the commercial kiss of death. It's adults only, and it was a big deal. Now you watch the movie and it's quite restrained. There's nothing that excessive. I have seen worse in proper mainstream. It's not the most extreme movie nowadays for sexual content. I wouldn't go as far as to call it mild, but it's still fairly tame. It is a silly movie. It doesn't really work. It's a bit over the top, a bit overhyped. The lead character is not likeable. She does lots of irritating, weird things. There's quite a few odd lines of dialogue. The story doesn't really work, or isn't that interesting. I think my interest pretty much drifted away during the last 20 minutes, and I actually walked out of the room to go do something else while the movie played, so I missed like a 2-minute chunk of the movie near the end. It's not a good movie. It is not the worst movie ever made by any stretch of the imagination. It was watchable. It was not that silly. I mean, I laughed out loud at it maybe 5 or 6 times, but I think it might be a bit extreme to turn it into a Rocky Horror Picture Show audience participation situation. Although, what do I know? I did not like the movie, but I did not dislike it. It was watchable. I don't know what they were really trying to achieve with it. It was not a disaster. I would give it a generous 4 out of 10. I don't want to suggest I liked the movie, but honestly it was watchable. If you can get past a few cringingly strange, weird moments, it did work for chunks of time. It just didn't amount to a whole heck of a lot. After doing this video, I had a thought. Showgirls could probably be improved quite easily by simply editing out the really bad bits, removing a few of the really silly bits, and de-emphasising or reducing the more annoying moments of the lead character, and the thing would probably play quite a bit better. You wouldn't cringe half as much. And if you were to go further and remove like half an hour of the movie is stuffed with some fairly redundant subplots. The friend who I think is sort of a fashion designer, if she could be reduced to very little. The stuff at the Cheetah Club with for example, with the woman, the overweight stand-up comic with the dress that keeps showing her breasts. If that character was to be completely removed, this would do no harm to the movie. The potential boyfriend dancer who creates a dance routine for them to do, if he was to be either removed or heavily reduced, again, it would do no harm to the movie. I think you could quite easily remove half an hour of fairly redundant subplots, and the movie would, and if you were to then concentrate the movie on the main plot, which is really the lead character's ascent up the ladder to top showgirl in Las Vegas at this particular casino, if you were to concentrate on that type of storyline, it would be a stronger movie overall. And so, with the really silly bits removed and the bloated subplots reduced, and along with it a whole bunch of the lead characters' unappealing silly tantrums and that type of stuff, if you were to remove that, you would probably end up with a pretty solid, respectable movie. Maybe no masterpiece ever. I mean, it's just not going to ever be anything special, that's for sure. But it is possible to imagine, with a heavily reduced running time and the really silly bits removed or heavily minimised, the film would be respectable, a solid, decent, if unremarkable movie. It's a thought.